Welcome
Welcome
to
to
Dr.
Dr.
M
M
Health
Health
Corner
Corner
Health
Health
Show.
Show.
Welcome. It's
Welcome. It's
Friday,
Friday,
the
the
23rd of
23rd of
May,
May
2021.
2021.
I
I
have two
have two
guests for
guests
you
for you
today.
today.
Today, the
Today,
time
the time
is
is
12:15
12:15
p.m.
p.m.
MST,
MST,
2:15
2:15
p.m.
p.m.
Eastern
Eastern
Standard
Standard
Time.
Time.
Thank you so
Thank you
much
so
for
much for
joining us. I
joining
can
us. I
see
can
people
see
are
people are
coming
coming
on.
on.
Just let
Just
us
let
know
us know
where
where
you're
you're
tuning
tuning
from.
from.
Today we
Today we
have an
have an
interesting
interesting
topic.
topic.
It's
It's
making
making
rounds all
round
over
all
the
over the
world.
world.
And
And
today we're
today
going to
we're gonna
leave
leave
here with
here with
some
some
clarity.
clarity.
Without
Without
wasting our
wasting our
time,
time,
I'm going to
I'm gonna
introduce
introduce
our two
our
guests
two
here.
guests here.
In the
In the
middle,
middle,
I
I
have
have
Mr.
Mr.
Rolando
Rolando
Hyman.
Hyman.
He's a
He's a
psychotherapist,
psychotherapist,
motivational
motivational
speaker,
speaker,
a
a
podcaster,
podcaster,
and an
and an
author.
author.
He
He
writes
writes
beautiful
beautiful
books
books
and, of
and, of
course,
course,
comes with
comes
a
with a
different
different
approach.
approach.
Once we
Once
have
we
this
have this
topic, I
topic,
can't
I
wait
can't wait
to
to
pick up
pick
his
up
mind
his
here.
idea.
Welcome,
Welcome,
Rolando.
Rolando.
Thank you, Dr. Nati. It's good to be here. I'm excited to be a part of this conversation. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm gonna
I'm gonna
enjoy this.
enjoy this.
And
And
next to
next to
Rolando
Rolando
is my
is
dear
my dear
friend,
friend,
Dr.
Dr.
Yvonne
Yvonne
Kangong.
Kangong.
Dr.
Dr.
Yvonne
Yvonne
is a
is a
family
family
medicine
medicine
specialist
specialist
and also
and also
specialized in
specialized in
obesity
obesity
medicine.
medicine.
She's an
She's an
author.
author.
Recently,
Recently,
actually, she
actually, she
has a
has a
book she
book she
just
just
released.
released.
Beautiful book
Beautiful book
where
where
she
she
basically came
basically
with
came with
other
other
immigrant
immigrant
women
women
and shared
and
their
shared their
stories, their
stories, their
journeys.
journeys.
Yvonne, I would
Yvonne, I
like
would
to
like
hear
to
more
hear more
about your
about your
book.
book.
Welcome,
Welcome,
sis.
sis.
Thank you,
Thank you,
Dr.
Dr.
Nati. It's
Nati.
a
It's a
pleasure to
pleasure
be
to be
here.
here.
Thank you so
Thank you so
much.
much.
Let's take
Let's
a
take a
deep
deep
dive
dive
on the
on the
topic.
topic.
Our
Our
topic
topic
today
today
is
is
toxic
toxic
masculinity
masculinity
and
and
mental
mental
health.
health.
Rolando,
Rolando,
I just
I
want
just
to
want to
hear
hear
from
from
you.
you.
Why
Why
is it
is it
this
this
topic
topic
making
making
so much
so much
noise right
noise
now?
right now?
That's an interesting question, Dr. Onati, because I think there's been a societal expectation around masculinity. A lot of men in the community now, they believe that masculinity is muscle and might. It's not emotions. It's not admitting weaknesses. It's not saying or asking for help. And so masculinity has been impacted over throughout the centuries with a false understanding of really what does it mean to be a man, and how does being a man come across to society. If you cried, it's weakness. If you ask for help, it's weakness. If you don't stand up and be loud and aggressive, then you're failing. So masculinity has really been impacted. And I remember some time ago I had an interview, and I can't forget the expression that my guest used, which is so powerful, but he referred to it as an outdated masculinity. And so masculinity and the toxicity that surrounds it is happening because of an outdated example of masculinity where everyone wants to be like the men that they see in the movie 300. Everyone wants to be a renegade. Being a man is having tattoos, having muscles, riding a Harley, putting on a leather jacket. I'm not saying those things are bad things. Don't get me wrong. I'm just saying that some of these things are what a lot of young men are applying to being a man.
Yes.
And that's why my passion, as you know, with XY Spark is restoring healthy masculinity and helping more men to understand themselves and become more connected with the reality that, hey, guess what? It's okay
It's
to ask
It's
for help.
okay.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes.
But
But
here's the
here's the
thing though,
thing though,
Rolando.
Rolando.
We
We
indoctrinate
indoctrinate
this
this
concept
concept
to
to
young
young
boys.
boys.
Do we
Do we
blame
blame
men
man
today?
today?
I want
I
to
want to
hear
hear honestly
more
more
We
on that.
thoughts.
who do we blame? We blame society.
Yes.
Yes.
I'm going to go out on a limb here and say we blame single moms who think sometimes that they have all the answers. We blame fathers who were they had a false misrepresentation from their fathers about what it means to be a man. We blame foster parents and caregivers. We blame the teacher in the classroom who would look at a young man and tell him things like, "You're never going to make it," or "You'll not come out to nothing." There are so many. So who do we blame? We blame the community on a whole. We blame society. For example, there are men now who, if they ever speak about how they're feeling in their relationship, they're perceived as wimp by their partners
Yes.
because she wants a real man. She wants a quote unquote a tough guy, someone who doesn't talk about emotions or say that there's something going on. And so that's why we have so many men who are trying to find support in the wrong places: drugs, alcohol, compulsive behaviors, without having a safe space to go and say, "Hey, this is what's going on. I'm struggling." So who do we blame? You, me, all of us. We're in it together.
We have
We have
played a
played a
role.
role.
Thank you
have
so
played a
So
much,
much,
Rolando.
Rolando.
Yes, you
Yes,
know
you know
what,
what?
Dr.
Dr.
Yvonne,
Yvonne,
you are a
you are a
mom,
mom,
fortunately, to a
fortunately, to a
boy
boy
child,
child,
and I've
and I've
seen
seen
how
how
amazing your
amazing your
son is
son is
doing.
doing.
And
And
I mean,
I
he
mean, he
just,
just,
transferred to
transferred to
university, and
university, and
how
how
he's
he's
showing
showing
his
his
manhood,
manhood,
but
but
also it
also it
taps his
taps his
vulnerability.
vulnerability.
How did you
How did
tap
you
into
tap into
that?
that?
It's been
It's
19
been
years,
19 years,
18 years,
18
right?
years, right?
How did you do
Yeah.
it?
Do it.
I think
I
you
think you
start when
start
they're
when
young,
they're
you
young,
start
you
by
start by
telling them that they
telling them
can
that they can
express
express
themselves.
themselves.
There's
There's
nothing like
nothing like
man up.
man up.
Men
Men
have
have
emotions.
emotions.
They
They
have to be
have to be
vulnerable.
vulnerable.
I'm a
I'm a
football, basketball soccer
soccer
mom,
mom,
so I
so I
spend a lot
spend
of
a
time
lot of time
driving
driving
boys.
boys.
So my
So my
son's
son's
friends.
friends.
And
And
sometimes they have
sometimes
a
they have
bad
a
day
bad
at
day at
school.
school.
They get
They
into
get
the
into the
car,
car.
they start
They start
whining,
whining.
and
And
then
then
I tell
I
them
tell
it's
them it's
okay to
okay to
express their
express their
emotions.
emotions.
We go
We
to a
go to a
game,
game,
they
they
lose,
lose,
and you
and
can
you
see
can
that
see that
they want
they
to
want to
cry,
cry,
but they
but
don't
they
feel
don't
like
feel like
crying.
crying.
And I
And
turn
I
and I
turn and I
say,
say,
it's
it's
okay.
okay.
Crying
Crying
doesn't make
doesn't
you
make
weak.
you weak.
It's okay
It's
to
okay
show
to
your
show your
emotions.
emotions.
So
So
it's been
it's
like
been
how
like
many
how many
years? Like
years? Like
most of them
most
have
of
been
them have
doing
been
that
doing
for at
that
least
for at least
10
10
years. They
years.
are all
They
in
are all in
university now.
university now.
So they
So they
became
became
comfortable with
comfortable with
me.
me.
They
They
became
became
comfortable
comfortable
expressing their
expressing their
emotions.
emotions.
And
And
I
I
think they're going
think
to
they're gonna
grow up
grow up
showing that
showing that
in their
in their
life, to
life,
their
to their
wife, to
wives,
their
their
relationship. So
relationship.
it's
So
so
it's so
important we
important we
start them
start this
when they're
when they're
younger.
younger.
That's
That's
important,
important,
Yvonne.
Yvonne.
And
And
interestingly,
interestingly,
recently I
recently I
saw
saw
Will
Will
Smith
Smith
showing
showing
himself
himself
on
on
Instagram doing
Instagram
this
doing this
challenge
challenge
and
and
challenging
challenging
other
other
guys
guys
to
to
show their
show their
tummies. He's
tummies. He's
gained a little
gained a
bit
little
of
bit of
weight
weight
now.
now.
And he
And he
showed it.
showed
I
it.
mean,
I
we
mean,
know
we
Will
know Will
Smith, who
Smith,
is
who is
this
this
handsome
handsome
man with
man with
six
six
pack,
pack,
but he
but
was
he was
comfortable to
comfortable to
show
show
that.
that.
I want
I
you,
want you,
Yvonne,
Yvonne,
actually to
actually to
comment on
comment on
that.
that.
As an
As an
obesity
obesity
specialist,
specialist,
family
family
physician,
physician,
how
how
many
many
men
men
come to
come to
you
you
complaining
complaining
or
or
probably
probably
needing
needing
help
help
for weight
for weight
loss?
loss?
We can't
We
run
can't
away
run
from
away
the
from
fact
the fact
that
that
men
men
die
die
more
more
due
due
to
to
cardiovascular
cardiovascular
diseases.
diseases.
Weight
Weight
plays a
plays a
role.
role.
But do
But
we
do we
see
see
many of
many
them
of them
coming in?
coming in?
You
You
know,
know,
that's
that's
really a
really
good
a good
question.
question.
Most of
Most
my
of my
panel
panel
is
is
female.
female.
Recently,
Recently,
though, I
though,
think
I
with
think with
COVID 19,
COVID-19,
I've seen
I've
a
seen a
change
change
because there's
because
been
there's
lots
been
of
lots of
talks
talks
about
about
obesity and
obesity and
COVID 19.
COVID-19.
And so now
And so now
men are
men are
coming
coming
and
and
saying,
saying,
listen, doc,
listen, doc,
I want to
I
be
want to
there
be
for
there
my
for my
family.
family.
I don't
I
want to
don't
die
want
of
to die of
COVID 19. I've
COVID-19.
seen
I've
a
seen
lot
a
of
lot
what's
of what's
happening in the
happening in the
US.
US.
So I
So
think
I
there's a
think there's
little
a
bit of
little bit of
a paradigm
paradigm
shift,
shift,
and I
and I
hope
hope
that
that
continues.
continues.
Loved it.
Loved it.
I've seen
I've
the
seen the
shift
shift
too in
too
my
in my
own
own
practice.
practice.
And you
And
guys
you guys
know I
know
have
I have
this
this
group,
group,
that I
that I
moderate with
moderate with
men,
men,
and
and
how
how
beautiful it
beautiful it
is
is
to
to
see these
see these
men
men
living in
living
their
in their
own
own
vulnerability and
vulnerability and
expressing
expressing
what
what
has
has
been
been
going on
going
in
on
their
in their
lives
lives
and
and
sharing their
sharing their
childhood,
childhood,
things that
things that
hurt
hurt
them.
them.
Rolando,
Rolando,
tell
tell
me, in your
me in
own
your own
practice,
practice,
what is your
what is your
experience? Do
experience?
you
Do you
see
see
such a
such a
shift right
shift
now?
right now?
Yeah, you know, I'm very, very excited to say that I realize that more and more men are starting to come out of the woodwork. And, I wanted to say to those men who are starting to come out and ask for help, kudos to you. Because there are so many things that they have to go up against. There are so many obstacles that they have to face in coming out of the woodwork and saying, hey, can somebody help me here? I'm drowning. For those who have not yet made that decision, you may be watching this program. I'd say the hardest step is the first one. After that, you find that it gradually becomes easier. I want to make this special, what I call appeal to the men, Dr. Renati, which is to remember this, that your first responsibility is not to be a man, is not to be a husband, is not to be a father, is not to be a dad, is not to be a great weightlifter, a great basketball player, a great soccer player. It's not even to be the best lover that your woman has ever seen. Your first responsibility is to be human. That is the foundation
Wow.
upon which all these things stand. And if you
Yes.
start allowing yourself to be human, it won't be hard for you to recognize emotions. It won't be hard for you to talk about weaknesses. It won't be hard for you to talk about limitations. It won't be hard for you to step out and say, hey, I am struggling with my mental health. I need support. So, guys, I just want to encourage you. And I'm saying this with this smile on my face because I know and I've seen the transition, I've seen the transformation that has taken place in the lives of men who recognize that, hey, if I allow myself to be human, miracles will happen.
Wow.
Wow.
But
But
here's the
here's the
thing,
thing,
though,
though,
Rolando,
Rolando,
in my
in my
practice, and
practice,
of
and of
course, you
course, you
guys
guys
will
will
admit
admit
to
to
this.
this.
Why
Why
does it
does it
take
take
to
to
brink
brink
of
of
divorce?
divorce?
Loss of
Loss
a
of a
loved
loved
one,
one,
gender-based
gender-based
violence,
violence
to
to
get to
get
that
to that
place.
place.
How do we
How do
get
we get
men
men
to
to
come
come
before that?
before that?
Because this
Because
is
this is
reality.
reality.
Few weeks
Few weeks
ago, I
ago, I
interviewed a
interviewed a
colleague.
colleague.
Dr.
Dr.
Hyman
Hyman
mentioned
mentioned
his
his
clients are
clients are
mostly
mostly
doctors,
doctors,
lawyers,
lawyers,
judges.
judges.
These are
These
people
are
that are
people that are
solving
solving
problems.
problems.
But
But
actually, it
actually,
is
it's
their
their
wives that
wives
come
that come
in
in
and
and
say,
say,
I
I
gave
gave
my
my
spouse
spouse
an
an
ultimatum.
ultimatum.
If he's
If
not
he's not
coming for
coming for
help,
help,
we're
we're
done.
done.
Because we
Because
all
we
know
all know
here,
here,
men,
men,
when they
when they
struggle, like
struggle,
you
like you
said, they
said, they
either do
either do
drugs,
drugs,
and they're
and they are
depressed
depressed
because they are
because they
in
are in
pain
pain
emotionally.
emotionally.
So
So
then they
then they
become
become
violent.
violent.
They
They
drink a
drink
lot
a lot
more,
more,
right?
right?
They
They
isolate.
isolate.
How do
How
we
do
get
we get
them to
them
that
to that
place?
place?
Because there's
Because there's
women who are
women who are
watching us.
watching us.
Do you have
Do
any
you have any
advice,
advice,
Rolando,
Rolando,
for them?
for them?
One of the things that I've discovered, even in my own life, Dr. Ornati, speaking from personal experience, there are two guys that they don't keep company: ego and humility. And if a guy
Amen.
continues to listen to ego, he will not be willing to humble himself and say, I need help.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so, all of us as men, we've got to get to that place where we're willing, and I'm piggybacking on what Dr. Yvonne said. We have to be willing to become vulnerable and humble ourselves and get supports. So, what my advice would be to those men? Your whatever hat it is that you wear, just remember this: you can't help anyone if you're not willing to help yourself.
Right.
And just imagine how much better of a lawyer or doctor or husband or engineer or or pilot you would be if you take some time to step back and say, hey, wait a minute, what about working on me for a change? Because Dr. Unadi, here's a challenge. Society has made a lot of us as men believe that it's my responsibility to take care of the family.
Yes.
Yes.
And we do it with passion. We work 12, 14-hour days. We We make sure the kids have everything they need. We make sure we get the wives as expensive as we can. We go on the vacations, you name it, we do all of that. But we're not recognizing that there's one part of the equation that's missing. I've not been taking care of me, my spiritual needs, my social needs, my psychological needs, okay, my emotional needs. I've not been paying attention to that because I believe that I am Superman.
Right.
And even Superman, when he comes in front of kryptonite, he fails. So we have got to stop having this mentality and get out of our comfort zone and ask ourselves this question. Whenever we feel like we're resisting to ask for help, we want to ask ourselves this question. Is this ego speaking or is it humility?
Wow.
Wow.
Loved
Loved
it.
it.
Loved it.
Loved it.
You know what,
No
to
one
take
to
one?
take one.
You
You
mentioned
mentioned
that
that
there's
there's
a
a
shift.
shift.
We
We
both know
know
that
that
we have diverse community in
in
Canada.
Canada.
What
What
have
have
you
you
observed?
observed?
We
We
have
have
people,
people,
fortunately,
fortunately,
we
we
from
from
the
the
black
black
community,
community,
where
where
that
that
masculinity
masculinity
is
is
quite
quite
evident.
evident.
Are you
Are you
seeing
seeing
any of
any
that
of that
shift
shift
from our
from our
community?
community?
Like in
Like
the
in the
black
black
community,
community,
it's
it's
big.
big.
Right.
They
Grow
grow
up
up
saying
saying
man up,
man up,
right?
right?
Mhm.
And
And
I'm
I'm
gonna be
gonna be
so
so
frank
frank
here.
here.
Sometimes
Sometimes
it's
it's
the
the
women
women
in their
in their
lives
lives
who
who
are not
are not
supportive.
supportive.
Let's say
Let's say
something
something
happens and
happens
the
and
man
the
is
man is
stressed
stressed
and he
and he
wants
wants
to
to
shed a
shed a
tear.
tear.
Come on,
Come
they
on.
might tell
They
the
might
men
tell
don't
the men
cry.
don't cry.
Why are you
Why are
crying
you
in
crying
front
in
of
front of
us?
us?
What do you
What
want
do
us
you
to
want us
do
to
if
do
you
if
are
you
crying
are
like a
crying like a
man?
man?
So I
So
think
I
we
think
all
we all
have
have
to.
to.
It's a
It's a
group thing
group
where
thing
we
where
have
we have
to
to
come
come
together and
together
say
and say
it's
it's
okay.
okay.
It's okay
It's
to
okay to
cry.
cry.
It's okay
It's
to
okay to
cry in
cry
front
in
of
front of
my
my
wife.
wife.
It's
It's
okay to
okay
cry
to
in
cry
front
in
of
front
my
of my
kid.
kid.
I
I
am
am
human
human
after
after
all.
all.
Because what
Because what
happens,
happens?
things of a
Things of a
pressure
pressure
pot,
pot.
the
The
heat
heat
goes
goes
in,
in,
the
the
pressure
pressure
builds up,
builds up,
and
and if you
if you don't
don't
open it
open it
slowly, what
slowly, what
happens?
happens?
It
It
explodes.
explodes.
Boom.
Boom.
And so
And
that's
so
what
that's what
happened with
happened with
men.
men.
They
They
repress all
repress
the
all the
emotions.
emotions.
They
They
repress all
repress
the
all the
emotions, and
emotions.
one
And
day
one day
something
something
happens,
happens,
they
they
explode.
explode.
Gender-based
Gender-based
violence.
violence.
Name it.
Name it.
So
Wow.
I
So I
think
think
it's
it's
really so
really so
important for
important
us
for
all
us
to
all to
embrace
embrace
this
this
and
and
work
work
together
together
as a
as a
team.
team.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
And I
And
mean,
I mean,
let's
let's
look
look
at
at
the
the
causes
causes
of
of
suicide
suicide
or the
or the
age group
age group
rather.
rather.
It's
It's
15 to
15 to
29.
29.
You know,
You
there's
know,
a
there's
lot
a
of
lot of
young
young
men
men
that
that
die
die
prematurely
prematurely
in that
in that
age
age
group.
group.
So the
So the
society has
society has
not
not
shifted
shifted
yet.
yet.
And I'm
And I'm
glad,
glad,
Dr.
Dr.
Yvonne, you are
Yvonne, you are
mentioning the
mentioning the
importance of
importance of
women
women
in
in
these
these
men's
men's
lives,
lives,
in
in
these
these
boys'
boys'
lives.
lives.
Let us
Let us
give them
give
that
them that
safe
safe
space.
space.
I'll
I'll
tell you
tell you
about
about
myself.
myself.
My
My
partner
partner
said I
said
have
I have
changed
changed
since I
since I
started this
started this
show for
show for
men
men
last
last
year
year
because
because
I
I
am
am
tapping into
tapping
that
into that
feminine
feminine
energy of
energy of
compassion.
compassion.
It
It
also
also
has
has
changed
changed
me.
me.
Not only
Not
this
only this
man.
man.
And
And
again, like
again,
we
like we
said,
said,
we
we
need to
need
be
to be
intentional
intentional
and
and
create
create
these
these
spaces.
spaces.
I
I
love
love
it.
it.
Yes.
Yes.
So
So
tell
tell
me,
me,
Rolando, I
Rolando,
know
I know
that
that
you
you
have an
have an
upcoming
upcoming
program
program
here
here
in
in
June.
June.
Have
Have
you
you
received
received
any
any
positive
positive
response from
response
men?
from men?
Absolutely. Right now, I want to tell you, June the 20th, we're hoping that we'll have some flexibility. But June the 20th, we want to have what we call a March for Men's Mental Health Awareness. We already have a number of communities that are preparing for that. For example, Rocky Mountain House. They are ready. They have their T-shirts. They have their route planned out. We're getting stuff ready here in further north in Alberta. We have group of men in Ontario who are seeking to be a part of it. We have a group of men in California. We're hoping they can be a part of it. But we really want to make this an annual event. This is our first year that we're going to be seeking to host this event. And all we're saying is mental health matters and it's impacting men significantly. And we're seeing that clearly with, as you mentioned earlier, the rates of suicide during the pandemic, for example, researchers came out of Lethbridge University that mental health in men has gone up over 13% over the past year. Okay, so what does that mean? That means that we need to all become a lot more deliberate. We need to become a lot more mindful about the reality that our community, whether we believe it or not, our community is not as balanced as it should be if we have men who are not grounded and who feel that they can't find a safe space to go and deal with their issues. And that's what our goal is, Dr.
I love
Renati.
You know what? When you told me about it 2 months ago, I got excited because I'm seeing the growth in the group too, and the openness and how men are starting to talk about this hurt. When you talked about how the responsibilities, the society created that for men, that everything is on them. These men complain about that. Let's talk about us moving from Africa, moving to the West. Here, there's not much help, first of all, right? Everyone is working, right? And the kids have to go to university. Things are expensive. But there's still need to have that keep both women and men, because women are trained to believe that the husband will buy the house, pay the mortgage, the kids, and the husband believes that I'm not going to help you with dishes. And everyone is tired. So how do people get to redefine their lives to help healthy relationships? Don't pay Yvonne, how do people do that?
We have to work together as a team.
Right.
Even in Africa right now, in different parts of the world, I think it's one watches the other.
Right.
We support each other. Growing up, maybe it was that daddy had to provide everything and mommy had to stay home and take care of everything in the house without a salary. But now things are tough. And the woman also has to have her own sense of responsibility and be a little self-sufficient. What happens to the man today? He goes out and doesn't come back home. You start from scratch. What happens to the children? You might think, okay, there's life insurance. It's not going to last forever. You've been home for 20 years, taking care of the kids, right? I respect all those who can do that. But if you can even work part-time and support the man, I think it goes a long way. And then your daughters can learn from you and see that you're doing that also and you're helping daddy. We don't want to be running to daddy every time for pocket money. Right? If that is okay with it, that's fine. But I think do something for you. That you can sit up and say, I made this money. I can spend it a little bit the way I want. And I can support my husband. Yeah.
Wow. Dr. Yvonne, you touched on something that reminded me something we discussed a few weeks ago. We actually invited the chief superintendent from the police service, and we talked about the vulnerability people come here, like say people who are from other countries, refugee status, and how this change in culture can actually disrupt family units too. Where women now, because of this side of the world, people have rights. They can see, I've been in abusive marriage for the rest of my marriage. So they start picking up. And then, of course, there's a lot of divorces. Like I'll talk about the South Sudanese community where there's high rate of that. And the kids that end up in jail because of the failed, basically family units. Rolando, what can you advise these families, more especially for men, because truly family units are important for these kids to build themselves. Like you said, we don't want to raise these kids. We are not men.
Mm-hmm.
They need their fathers.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Dr. Onati, one thing I'm one person who I say is this. Sometimes I hear a person say, my mother who fathered me, or stuff like that. And I say, realistically speaking, a mother can only be a mother, and a father can only be a father. And both individual brings with them their giftedness to parent this child together. Now, when you talk about what's happening in relationships, oftentimes it's basically a trickling down from what they were exposed to from their own family of origin. This is how I saw my dad doing it. This is how I saw my mom doing it. Okay? And so they continue that trend without pausing to really recognize and look at, wait a minute, if this is hurting my relationship, how do I stop looking to see my partner do something differently and start doing something differently myself? And how do we reach out and get support before the ship starts to sink? Because sometimes, we recognize that water is coming in, but we're like, just a little leak. Okay? And the leak gets bigger and bigger until the ship starts going down nose first. That's when we want to try to get help. When sometimes when we get there, it's too late already. The damage has been done. There's a lot of resentment in the relationship. There's a lot of hurt. Unforgiveness has been going on for a number of years. So now, finally, when someone gets to the counselor, there's no miracle that the counselor can work then. Okay, because there's been so much hurt in the relationship. Sometimes I've seen relationships come back from really far, and I take no credit. I say, what, you guys, it's because you guys were invested, you were willing to forgive, you were willing to go and work on your personal issues, because that's the next big thing, Dr. Unati. Wives and husbands who are not willing to acknowledge their own issues. When they're saying he has a problem or she has a problem. And for guys, somehow it appears as though by nature we're the last to admit that we have a problem. And that's something that's killing us too. We have to go out there and recognize what we're doing that's destroying our marriages and do the work to make it better.
Simple. And it's not simple. It's easier said than done. Because not all cultures speak about mental health. Even if they move from their east or from African continent, coming here, you still see people struggling. How many you can tell us here? Do you have many couples you are counseling? Just cross-culturally.
I'm going to say this to you. In my own culture, since I've been practicing psychotherapy here in Canada over 7 years, I can probably count on one of my hand the amount of Afro-American couples that has actually showed up in my office and say, Rolando, we're struggling. I can count on one of my hand. Here's another thing that I've learned. And this is something that is going to be pointed. So brace yourself, Dr. Renat.
Right.
There are some things that we do as a people that's culturally a curse. And unless we're willing to confront those cultural things that we have been doing for generations, unless we're willing to confront them, we are going to continue to be the tail. We're going to continue to struggle. We're going to continue to have more of our kids going behind bars. We're going to continue to have more of our young men giving up and quitting, because some of us as fathers and mothers, wherever we came from to Canada or wherever we are now, we are continuing this cultural curse, and we're destroying our kids, destroying our wives, destroying our communities, and we're not doing anything about it. So we have got to become a lot more purposeful in saying, hey, okay, this is how my dad do it, and his grandfather did that like that before him, and we've been doing it this way now for 400 years. But what if? And here's a powerful piece, Dr. Nat. In my research, I ran into this, what we call intellectual humility. And here's what it is. It is asking this question: could it be that all the things that I've been taught from my childhood until now is flawed? That's what we need to ask ourselves. Because if it's flawed, and we're saying to ourselves, I know that it's flawed, but what can I do about it? Then something is wrong with that. Because if it's flawed, it means that it's time for us to do something different.
Yes. Wow. Dr. Yvonne, tell me in the practice, because now in my practice I'm starting to see more men even coming to talk about their mental health, and they're crying in front of me because they've repressed their emotions forever. How long does it take in your practice or just generally? Because I think we share same experiences. How long does it take for men to come see you when they've been depressed for 5 years?
Couple of visits. Maybe a year, maybe 2 years. Sometimes they come with vague symptoms. They say, work is hard, I'm tired, my wife is provoking me. Just like many things, but they never come openly to say how they're struggling. And as time goes on, I think I just try to reassure them that this is a safe space. I'm here to help them. Whatever we talk here doesn't go out of this door, nor does it go to the wife. And I always encourage them at some point to bring their wife to the visit. Let's talk together so that they can express themselves, to let the wife know how they're feeling. So it's so important. But sometimes they'll come to 3 visits, open up, cry sometimes, which to me, the day that I see a man cry in my practice, it's a winning day.
Love it.
Because then I know that they've trusted me enough to show their vulnerability. I think us like healthcare professionals, we have to let the patients or the men know that this is a safe place, and I'm here to help you.
I love it, Dr. Yvonne. That's 1 week. This week, I've had 3 men. I was so happy to see them cry. Who knew? But they just said to me, I love the aura I felt when I got to this room. So I think it's important to our healthcare professionals out there to create this space. Thank you so much, Rolando, for what you are doing. So, Rolando, I want men here to recognize these terms, because this toxic masculinity, it doesn't matter which culture you're from. We see our other brothers from other cultures, same experiences. How does a person who is struggling with toxic masculinity, how does it present physically and emotionally? What do they come complaining? And like so that people can seek help. In case you don't even realize that they're depressed or they're PTSD or anxiety.
Thank you, Doctor. The question, when you talk about toxic masculinity, oftentimes the foundation or the source of that comes from the people that you surround yourself with as well. You want to start looking at your circle. And Dr. David McClellan out of Harvard, he did research years ago, and he said this. He says, the people that you surround yourself with the most are your reference group. And they have the ability to impact 95% of your failure or success in life. So when you talk about toxic masculinity, it spreads out over your outlook. What do you expect of the community? How do you view yourself? What lens do you see yourself through? Are you someone who values an entitlement mentality, where you feel that, hey, everything should come easy. For example, there was a video or something that I saw not too long ago of a young man who he has the ability, he's qualified to get a job. He has qualifications, but he's sitting down with other young men who are not as qualified as he is, and his expression is, I can't work for that small amount of money. I need to make more. That's another form of toxic masculinity. And on this stage, Dr. Unati, I would make appeal to even men who are in positions of power, for example, in certain communities where there are guys in positions of power. And the only reason why they're able to maintain that power and some of these young men who are vulnerable look up to them the way they do is because they are weak and they're training these young men to be weak and dependent on them.
Right.
So the toxicity spreads out, hence that's why you have gang violence that's so prevalent, because these young men, they are encircled with other men who are not sure about who they are or what their role is. And so they choose the easy way out. Now, I want to respond to a question that someone asked in the box, which is most of our people are not going to ask themselves the question, which is, could it be that the way that I've been taught all my life is flawed? What could be a next question? Here's another simple question that I would want to put there. What do I need to be the best version of myself?
I love it.
And I hope that
Not
answers your
just
question,
dive
Jeff.
inside yourself.
So if you can't ask that deep of a question, okay, look at yourself in the mirror. And here's what's ironic about that. Look at yourself in the mirror and be brutally honest. Do you like what you see? Do you think there's room for improvement? Look at your relationships. Look at how you relate. Look at how you're living your life. If when you take that look and everything is coming back to you like, hey, I'm perfect, then guess what? You don't need to do any work. Good for you. But if when you look in the mirror, you're being brutally honest with yourself, then you won't have to ask such a deeper question, Jeff, but you will instead say, hey, what do I need to do differently to become the best version of myself?
Wow. You change your circle. You look down inside yourself. You look for mentors. Right? People that have dreams, people that are bigger than you.
And Dr. Nora, I want to say this. Another thing that we're missing good mentorship.
Yes.
Mentorship is missing.
Yes.
Mentorship is missing. I saw something on the an athlete. He ran a race, and when he finished, he made a gesture. He made a gesture that was suggesting violence, because he pointed his finger. He was doing motions of shooting. Now that gesture, when I saw it, I said to myself, the young man is a good athlete.
Right.
But he's only good on his feet. He's not good in his head.
Right.
Okay? Now, how do you sit a young man like this down and say to him, you're a good runner? However, let's see if we can control those emotions and watch those gestures. Would he be able to see that as a constructive criticism, or would he walk away and say, this brother is disrespecting me?
And most likely the latter. Because just to add, Rolando, we have attached sense of self to material. How many narcissistic CEOs are leading organizations today because of meritocracy? They are leading. We all have known a lot of them because of their certificates, their Harvard degrees, but destroying people that are under them. Isn't it sad, though? The pride, the ego.
Jeff put an interesting comment in the chat, Dr. Nati, and he said, if our people had that level of emotional intelligence,
yes,
they would not be in the conditions that they're in now. Jeff, I love the comment. And can I extend on the comment and say we would not be in the position that we are in? Because the position that we are in, Jeff, we did it. Knowledge and education is so accessible now. It's accessible. However, not everyone can access it, Jeff. And so to say that could be, hey, Rolando, come on, you know how it goes. You're in North America, but there are people who they struggle to even get to really hear that. So then we have to start now, Jeff, by working with what we have. Okay? What we have. What can we access? Who can we talk to? Look around you. Even in the darkest corner, there oftentimes is a spark. And sometimes it's just to line yourself up. Is there a grandmother, a grandfather, someone who, has, good sense to give you some guidance? How are you accessing what you have available? Because you're right. And emotionally too, Jeff, as a people, we have been so discriminated against. We have been so battered. We struggle with PTSD. We struggle with our identity or identity. There's a lot of struggle for sure. So the emotional piece sometimes is what we display is based on our life experiences. However, our life experiences are there as lessons to catapult us over into a new journey, a new exposure. But we have to be willing, Jeff, to do
Willingness.
Okay?
Willingness. Dr. Yvonne, do you see people coming in? You mentioned before that you have to dig their stories. Because we can't deny that across culture, men when they present with depression, they come with those vague symptoms we're talking about. Do you want to share what men should look for to see this? I really need help. Because there's so much that comes with this. You have to be this stoic man, but it comes with a lot of pain, suffering physically and emotionally.
Yeah, I think they get to a point whereby most of the time it's a partner that says, I can't deal with you anymore. Or a colleague at work, or a friend that notices and say, hey, I've been trying to reach you, you're not calling me back. What's going on, man? Or another family member, or they can't sleep, or they're just not themselves, or they become suddenly violent. And maybe a partner would be like, what is really going on with you? I think you should go see a doctor.
Right.
And that's when they come running. That's when they come running. Before that, they just keep suppressing it and blame it on, I'm working too much. I have too much to do for the family. And they don't sit back and say, I need to take care of me. I can't pour out of an empty cup.
Right.
It's always, they want to give. But what about you? Because remember, when you wake up and you take care of yourself, you start your day on the right footing. Your day goes well. You're armed to be able to face the day. But when you wake up with so much stress, you just get up and boom, you go without taking that time for you. It's gonna be a really difficult day.
Yes.
And I like what Rolando said about being the best version of yourself. Like my son, remember I've shared that quote with you. He always says that, Mommy, I want to be the best version of myself. You people are giving me the best of both worlds. If I can't succeed, I am to be blamed. That's what my son will always do. So take ownership. Sometimes it's because of you. I'm screaming at, you made me get upset and hit you. You made me get mad. If you didn't do that, I wouldn't have. You have to be responsible. Right. Whatever people throw at you, you have to be responsible for your own action. It doesn't have to be because they did that to me. That's why I'm acting this way.
Yes.
So that's we really need to change that. People have to dig deep and say, I am responsible for my own actions. Don't blame anyone.
Yes.
Don't blame anyone. Yes, maybe you had a hard time growing up and everything, right? There is help out there. Seek help.
Yes.
Seeking help doesn't make you weak. On the contrary, seeking help makes you strong. Because if you are, if you're a strong man, if you're a vulnerable man, your family will learn from you. And if you have male child or a boy, they would learn from you. And
Yes.
it's going to go from generation to generation. So really important.
I
Yeah.
loved it. I mean, Brené Brown, she's popular with her teachings on vulnerability and how it's funny when she started, she said she spoke and it went viral, this presentation she did on TED Talk. But people started approaching her and they were asking, but what are you going to teach? And then she talked about, I'm going to be talking about shame, guilt, and vulnerability. They're like, oh, okay, we'll get back to you. People don't want to go to those stories. People, men specifically, they don't want to go to those stories. And I liked it when you mentioned that they start withdrawing and we start seeing alcohol abuse, the gender-based violence, the broken families. That really hurts me. And this is across culture. You know, I've had, actually, here's the thing. I had a patient who shared with me that in her culture, it's not allowed to even divorce, irrespective of how abusive your marriage is. She told me I kept running back to my family. And guess what? When she eventually left her marriage after 15 years, which actually brought a lot of wounds, she's going through counseling. She's taking medication for very bad generalized anxiety disorder, including her children who witnessed the trauma she went through. I mean, we know that it's also witnessed. You don't have to experience it personally if your parents fight, right? But the sad part is she was disowned by her family. She kept running back. So this toxicity, it expands, not just like you were saying, you guys, that this is how people are indoctrinated into it. You are born into it. It takes self-awareness and also willingness. I'm loving that our viewers are still here. So it takes, like these speakers are sharing with us, it takes willingness. We know that these things are not easy to change. We are born into it, and it becomes rituals of the families and the cultures. I mean, we see it across board. I mean, I thought maybe it's just from my culture. I see it also in the Caucasian culture. It's just common. It's just how men were introduced to this world. As we close, I'll start with you, Rolando. How can people reach you? I know that you are doing amazing things at XY Spark. Do you want to share?
Yes, thank you, Dr. Renata. Persons can reach me, they can email me, or they can go to my website. My website is contactxyspark.com. I think it's flashing on the bottom of your screen right now. You can email me at Hyman, that's Hyman, Hyman at xyspark.info. Okay. I have to tell you, Dr. Onati, too, that I have this amazing program that I've built just for men. It's called the Masculinity Blueprint. And I'm telling you, it's for men who are at that place in their life where they're ready to make change. A guy will get up, for example, and he'll buy himself a muscle car for $100,000 or 200,000, or he'll buy his woman a diamond ring for 30 or 50,000. He'll buy a house for $1.2 million. He will go big. He'll go and he'll buy himself a suit for $1,200, and he wants to look good, and he buy himself a pair of shoes. And I'm saying the masculinity blueprint now is for those men who say, okay, it's time for me to invest in my mental health to be the best version of myself. And so I love it. That's how you can reach me if you do need to contact me. And I'm just in the process of launching 2 programs to Dr. Onati. Apart from the Masculinity Blueprint, we are launching Mastering the Mind for Men. Okay, and that one anyone can sign up for it. Okay, that one is actually free of charge starting on June 13th. And so if you're a male out there and you are serious about working XY Spark, that's what we aim to do. So reach out to us. We can come. We can talk to a group of men virtually as well. And hopefully this pandemic clears up. And we're just waiting for you guys. It's your time. The time is now.
Yes.
Okay. Yes. And there's no better time than this time, Dr. Renati. So thank you for having me. I was happy to be here.
Loved it, Rolando. Thank you so much. Dr. Yvonne, you want to share one word for our audience?
Yeah, man, it's okay to be vulnerable. This will help you in your career, in all you do, in your relationship with women.
Yes.
And also, I just want to emphasize that there's also a link with toxic masculinity, mental health, and obesity. There's been a link with bipolar, depression, ADHD, PTSD, all as a result of this. And it has to do with also the environment, biological, psychological, and also social determinants of health. So where you are and what you do and all of that. And we all know with obesity comes all the other chronic diseases. So it's really deep than we imagine, like heart attacks, strokes, diabetes, high blood pressure, name it. So that's why it's so important for us to have this talk and reach out, talk to someone. So
Wow.
really important.
Love
I
it.
can health.com, www, you can see it at the bottom of the screen. On Instagram at Dr. Kangong. Also, I'm on LinkedIn, Clubhouse, Facebook. Or my email is drkangong at breakershealth.com. And so remember to take care of you, because there's always one you. There's only one you. And as Rolando said, be the best version of yourself. Thank you.
Wow. Thank you so much, Rolando and Yvonne. I really enjoyed this. And of course, I'm grateful to our viewers to have stayed with us. And, work starts within us when we accept that definitely there's something that I need to do to change to be my best version. And of course, the relationships we have, it's so hurtful to see broken relationships because of pride and ego. And this is not only for men, because we women too play a big role, like the speakers said. So thank you so much, guys. And of course, to our viewers, I'm so grateful for you. Come back here next week, same time. And of course, same place. Thank you so much.